The alarm hit my ears before I even opened my eyes. Not the soft chime we use for routine calls. This was the sharp, three-note screech that meant someone was dying right now, somewhere on this station, and every second counted. I was already moving before I was fully awake. My boots hit the cold floor of the med bay, and I grabbed my kit without thinking. 10 years of training does that to you. Your body knows what to do even when your brain is still catching up. Location, I said into my comm as I ran. Lower atrium. Species unknown reaction. Multiple witnesses. No one is helping her. The voice on the other end sounded strange, almost hesitant. That hesitation should have warned me. It didn't. I reached the atrium in under 2 minutes. What I saw stopped me cold for exactly 1 second. A young Farian girl was on the ground, her 4 thin arms twitching, her pale blue skin turning a sickly gray at the edges. Around her stood at least 20 Farians, all of them standing in a wide circle, none of them moving closer. Not one. They just stood there, watching her die, their long faces frozen in something between fear and grief. "Someone help her," I shouted, dropping to my knees beside her. A tall Farian elder stepped forward, but only to block my path, not to help. His voice was low and urgent. "Human, do not touch her. You do not understand what you are seeing." "She's dying," I said. "I understand that much. She is Kalith marked. Touching her will bring the mark onto you. No one touches the marked. It is law older than your entire species." I looked past him at the girl. Her chest was barely rising now. Whatever was happening inside her body, it was moving fast, and every second these people spent explaining their customs to me was a second she didn't have. "I don't care about your law," I said. "I care that she's stopping breathing." The elder's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was surprisingly strong for someone so thin. "You will be cast out. You will be marked the same as her. No station will take you. No ship will carry you. Do you understand what you are asking for?" I pulled my wrist free and looked him dead in the eyes. "I understand that I became a healer to save lives, not to stand around and watch people die because of a story someone told 1,000 years ago." I turned my back on him and went to work. Her pulse was thready under my fingers, fast and weak, the kind of rhythm that tells you the heart is running out of options. I tore open my kit and pulled out my scanner, running it over her chest. The readout came back strange, full of numbers I didn't fully recognize, but I saw enough. Her airway was closing, something in her throat was swelling shut, and if I didn't act in the next 60 seconds, none of the rest would matter. Behind me, the crowd had gone completely silent. Not the silence of people who had stopped watching, the silence of people who couldn't look away. "She needs air," I said out loud, mostly to myself, my hands already moving. "Her throat is closing. I need to open an airway." I heard gasps behind me. Someone whispered a word I didn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. Horror. I ignored it. I tilted her head back gently, checked her mouth, and found what I expected. Swelling, fast and severe, blocking her airway almost completely. I didn't have the luxury of waiting for proper alien anatomy charts. I had seconds, and I had my training, and I had my hands. "Stay with me," I told her, even though I didn't know if she could hear me, even though I didn't know if Farians understood English at all. Sometimes you talk to a patient because it helps you stay calm more than it helps them. I reached into my kit and found the small tube I always carried, thin and flexible, meant for emergency airways in situations exactly like this. My hands were steady. They always went steady the moment I stopped thinking and started doing. "Human," the elder shouted behind me. "Stop this instant. You are damning yourself." "Then I'll be damned saving her," I muttered, and pushed forward. The tube slid into place. I heard a soft click, then a wheeze, then a gasp so loud it echoed off the atrium walls. Air rushed into her lungs, her chest rose, her gray skin began to shift back toward pale blue, color returning like watching a sunrise happen in seconds instead of hours. The crowd around us went dead silent again, but this silence felt different, heavier, like the whole room was holding its breath along with her. I kept my fingers on her pulse. It steadied, slower but steadier, stronger with each beat. I allowed myself one small breath of relief, but I didn't stop working. Not yet. "She needs fluids and monitoring," I said, looking up at the crowd. "Someone get me a stretcher." No one moved. I said, "Get me a stretcher." Still nothing. 20 Farians, and not one of them would step forward to help carry a girl I had just saved, because they were afraid of a mark that, as far as I could tell, wasn't even contagious in any way I understood. I felt something hot rise in my chest, something between anger and disbelief. "Fine," I said. "I'll carry her myself." I slid my arms under her thin frame and lifted her. She was lighter than I expected, almost fragile. And as I stood up with her in my arms, the crowd parted like water around a stone, stepping back so fast you would think I was carrying fire. The elder followed me, his voice tight with something that sounded less like anger now and more like fear for me. "You do not know what you have done," he said as I carried her toward the medbay. "The mark does not wash off. It does not fade. Everyone on this station will know what you touched." "Good," I said, not slowing my pace. "Let them know a doctor did his job." I got her to the medbay and laid her on the table, hooking up monitors, running fluids, checking every reading twice, because I still didn't fully trust alien physiology I had only studied in textbooks. Her vitals were climbing steadily, heart rate stabilizing, oxygen levels rising. She was going to make it. I finally let myself breathe. That's when the door slid open, and a woman walked in who I hadn't seen before. Human, dressed in station command gray, her expression tight with concern. "Dr. Callahan," she said, "I just got word. Is it true? Did you touch a Caliph-marked patient?" "Her name is not marked," I said, glancing at the readout on the girl's vitals. "Her name is a person, and she's alive because someone finally decided that mattered more than a superstition." The commander, whose name tag read Meredith Vance, folded her arms. "I'm not judging you, Callahan. I need to know what happens now. The Farian delegation is going to demand answers. This station survives on trade agreements with 3 different Farian clans. If they pull out because you broke a sacred taboo, we lose our supply lines. We lose everything. So what? I should have let her die to keep a trade deal?" "I didn't say that," Vance said, her voice softening slightly. "I'm saying you need to be ready for what's coming, because it's coming fast." She wasn't wrong. Within the hour, 3 Farian officials arrived at the medbay, their robes long and formal, their faces carved into expressions I couldn't quite read yet. Behind them came the elder from the atrium, still shaking his head like he couldn't believe what he'd seen. The tallest of the 3 officials stepped forward. His voice was calm, but there was an edge underneath it, like a blade wrapped in silk. "You are the human who touched the Caliph-marked girl." "I'm the human who saved her life," I said. "If that's a crime here, then I'll answer for it, but I won't apologize for it. You do not understand our ways." "No," I admitted. "I don't, but I understand a person stops breathing, they die, and no amount of tradition brings them back once that happens. I understand that much perfectly well." The official's eyes moved past me, to the table where the girl lay, breathing steadily now, her eyes flickering open for the first time since I'd arrived. She looked at me, just for a moment. Her eyes were a deep violet color, and even though I couldn't read Farian expressions well, I recognized something universal in the way she looked at me. Gratitude, simple and plain. "Kessa," the elder whispered, stepping closer. "You are awake." The girl, Kessa, turned her head slowly toward him, then toward the officials, then back to me. Her voice, when it came, was rough and quiet, but clear. "He saved me," she said, "while all of you stood and watched." The room went silent again, that heavy kind of silence that says more than any shouting ever could. The tall official's jaw tightened. "Kessa, you do not understand the weight of what has happened. The mark almost let me die," Kessa said, cutting him off with a strength in her voice that surprised everyone in the room, myself included. "I have carried that mark since I was 3 years old, through no fault of my own, because my grandmother made a choice she regretted. I have spent my whole life being someone no one would touch, no one would help, no one would even look at directly. And today, a stranger from another world knelt beside me and did what none of my own people would do." She looked at me again. "Thank you," she said, and even though her voice was still weak, the words carried through the entire room like a bell. The elder from the atrium lowered his head, and for a long moment, no one spoke. I stood there, still holding my scanner, still half expecting to be dragged away in chains or whatever passed for punishment in Farian custom. Instead, something else happened, something I didn't expect at all. The tall official turned to the elder. "How long has this mark tradition stood unquestioned?" "Since before any of us were born," the elder said quietly. "And in all that time," the official continued, "has anyone else ever survived what she survived today, without help?" The elder said nothing. He didn't need to. The answer was obvious to everyone in the room. The official turned back to me, and for the first time, his expression softened, just slightly, just enough that I could see something like respect underneath the formal mask. "Human healer, what is your name?" "Callahan," I said. "Ethan Callahan." "Ethan Callahan," he repeated slowly, testing the sound of it. "You have broken a law that has stood for longer than your entire species has known space travel. By our custom, this is a grave offense." I braced myself, ready for whatever came next, ready to defend my choice all over again if I had to. But, he continued, you have also done something none of us were brave enough to do. You looked at fear and tradition, and you chose a life over both. That is not nothing. That is not something we can simply punish away. Vance, who had been standing quietly near the door this whole time, stepped forward. Does this mean the trade agreement stands? The official looked at her, then at Kessa, then at me. It means, he said slowly, that perhaps it is time we asked ourselves harder questions about what our traditions actually protect, and what they simply allow us to ignore. He turned to the elder. Summon the clan council. Tonight, we have much to discuss. The elder bowed his head and left without another word. The officials followed shortly after, leaving only Vance, Kessa, and myself in the quiet hum of the medbay. Vance let out a long breath. Well, that could have gone a lot worse. Could have gone better too, I said, checking Kessa's vitals one more time. She almost didn't make it. But she did, Vance said, because of you. Kessa, still lying on the table, turned her head toward me again. Her breathing was steady now, her color fully back to normal. That soft, pale blue that I now realized was actually quite beautiful once you weren't watching it fade to gray. Why did you do it? She asked. You did not know me. You did not know my people. You could have lost everything by helping me. I thought about that question for a moment before answering. Where I come from, I said, we used to have our own version of what you call the mark. People treated differently, avoided, blamed for things they never chose, for things that happened before they were even born. It took us a long time, and a lot of mistakes, to learn that none of that ever made sense. That fear dressed up as tradition is still just fear. Kessa was quiet for a moment, absorbing that. So you touched me, she said slowly. Because somewhere in your history, someone once wished a stranger had touched them, instead of walking away. Something like that, I said. Yes. She smiled then, small and tired, but real. Then I am glad, she said, that your history taught you well. Over the following days, word of what happened in that atrium spread across the entire station, and then beyond it, carried by traders and travelers to other outposts, other worlds. I heard the story told back to me more than once by people who didn't realize I was the one it was about. Each time, the details shifted slightly, growing a little larger, a little more dramatic, but the heart of it always stayed the same. A human healer had touched someone everyone else was too afraid to touch, and that person had lived. The Farian Clan Council met for 3 full days after that night. I wasn't in the room for those discussions, but Vance kept me updated on what she heard through official channels. The mark tradition wasn't abolished overnight. Traditions that old rarely disappear in a single conversation. But something shifted. A crack formed in something that had stood unquestioned for generations. And once a crack like that forms, it never fully closes again. Kessa recovered fully within the week. On the day she was cleared to leave the medbay, she came to find me before departing the station with her family. I wanted to see you before I left, she said. I wanted to tell you something. You don't need to thank me again, I said, smiling. You already did that. It is not thanks, she said. It is a promise. I intend to become a healer myself one day. Not the kind that hides behind scanners and machines from a distance, afraid to get close. The kind that kneels beside someone when everyone else is standing back. I felt something warm settle in my chest hearing that, something that felt a lot like hope. That's a good goal, I said. The galaxy could use a few more healers like that. I learned it from watching one, she said, and then she smiled, turned, and walked away to join her family, her steps lighter and steadier than the last time I'd seen her walking anywhere at all. I stood there in the corridor for a long moment after she left, thinking about everything that had happened, about the warnings shouted at me in that atrium, about the elder's hand gripping my wrist, trying to stop me, about 20 people standing in a circle, too afraid to save one of their own. They told me not to touch her. They told me it would cost me everything. But there are some choices you make before you even finish thinking them through. Choices that live somewhere deeper than fear, deeper than custom, deeper than the warnings of people who have forgotten why their own rules exist in the first place. I didn't become a healer to follow rules that let people die. I became a healer to save them. And on that day, in that atrium, surrounded by voices telling me to stop, that was exactly what I did.